the trophy of victory. The sky above the arena was dark and heavy with storm clouds. Thunder rolled slowly across the black stone towers of the war capital. Inside the great training hall, the Queen of Blades moved like fire. Her silver armor shimmered with every strike of her twin blades. Soldiers watched in silence, afraid to speak. No one wanted to break her focus. No one dared. Nallarina was more than a queen. She was a legend among her kind. Tall, deadly, with cold blue skin and eyes, like burning ice. She had won 100 battles, broken 5 warlords, and taken trophies from each of them. But one trophy stood above them all. On her belt hung a cracked black mask. Scratched and burned, it once belonged to a human. Commander John Wrath. She told the story often, how she fought him alone on the burning sands of Entor, how the rest of his squad had already died, how he refused to beg. She said she struck him down with her blade, took his last breath, and pulled off his mask as a prize. This, she would say, tapping the broken mask at her hip, was the face of your fear. Now it is mine. Every soldier believed her. They cheered her name in the streets. They worshipped her power. The queen who killed the human commander, the ghost breaker, the Iron Fang. But something had started to feel wrong. Lately, Nallarina had trouble sleeping. She woke, with sweat on her neck as if someone had breathed on her. Shadows seemed to move when they shouldn't. Doors she swore she locked would open on their own. And sometimes when she trained alone, she would feel it. A breath. Soft. Cold. Behind her neck. Tonight was one of those nights. She spun. Blades, ready but saw nothing. Only the empty walls of the hall. Coward's tricks, she growled. Show yourself. No one answered. She turned back to her training, until she heard it. A single footstep. Not from the door, from behind her. Inside, the arena. Nallarina froze. Every hair on her skin rose. Her claws tightened around her blades. She turned. Slowly. And there he stood. A tall figure. Armored. Burned. His body was lit from behind, but she saw the black mask in his hand. Her trophy. The same mask she had worn for a year. Now held by the man she claimed to have killed. His face was scarred. His chest armor torn. His breathing slow and loud. But he was there. Real. Breathing. John Wrath. You, she whispered. He didn't speak. Her guards stormed in seconds later, weapons raised. Commander, are you hurt? One of them shouted. But Nallarina couldn't answer. She couldn't speak. John lifted his hand and dropped the mask. It hit the floor with a soft clink, then he said 5 quiet words. You didn't kill me, Queen. Her heart stopped. Fire! Her commander screamed. Weapons lit up. Energy bolts flew across the room. They passed straight through him. His body flickered, like smoke caught in wind. Then, he vanished. The room fell silent. Her guards scanned the area. Nothing. No sign of a transporter. No tech. One of them checked the floor where the mask had landed. It was gone. In its place was something else. A mark, scratched into the stone. 5 letters, in old human script. Find me, a whisper. Followed the words cold and close. Unfinished. Nallarina stumbled back. She didn't know if it was real. A ghost? A weapon? A trick? But one thing was clear. John Wrath was not dead, and now he had returned. The man with no heartbeat, the War Council chamber, was silent. Not because of respect, but because of fear. Queen Nallarina sat at the head of the long black table, staring down at her trembling fingers. The room was filled with her top generals, war scientists, and psychic trackers, yet no one spoke first. No one dared to ask her the question hanging in the air. Was it true? Did the human live? Nallarina finally looked up, her voice sharp and cold. He stood before me. I saw his face. I heard him breathe. And the mask he returned, it was the same. Cracked on the left side, burn marks from plasma fire. The one I took. The one I wore. One of her war scientists, a pale creature named Sorim, raised a hand slowly. Your Majesty, what you describe sounds like... A ghost? She snapped. No, I don't believe in spirits. The council shifted uncomfortably. No one reminded her that their own kind believed in many such spirits, especially the angry kind. Sorim cleared his throat. Then it may be something worse. Something human. Hours later, deep inside the royal archives, Nalarina stood alone in the forbidden section of war records. Few ever came here. Even fewer left unchanged. Her long fingers danced over the old data scrolls, their codes still pulsing faintly with red warnings. She entered her blood signature to unlock a sealed file marked only as Project Revenant. What she saw made her feel colder than space. John Rath hadn't been just a human commander. He had been chosen for a secret program. They had filled his veins with experimental nanotech, machines designed to restore damaged organs, restart a stopped heart, and keep a body moving even after death. The report was filled with words like bioresurrection, extreme pain threshold, and incomplete results. Subject escaped containment. Escaped. Not killed. Nalarina stared at those words for a long time. I never killed him, she whispered to herself. I never even fought the real John Rath. Suddenly, the lights around her flickered. Not once. Not twice. But 5 times. A war signal. An ancient one. Used only in times of great danger. Someone had entered the royal barracks without passing any scans. The alert said it clearly. Unidentified life form. Origin. Human. No heartbeat. Still breathing, she rushed to the barracks. Her elite guards formed a tight circle around her, weapons drawn. The air inside was heavy. Smoke, plasma dust, and something else. A scent she hadn't smelled since. Burned leather. Human armor. Her captain pointed to the far wall. Your Highness. It was scratched in, using only a finger. She walked forward. Slowly. On the wall, in deep cuts, were 6 new words. You told them I was dead. Beneath that, something was embedded in the stone. She reached down. It was her own blade, the one she had lost during the Entor battle, the one they never found. It had returned, not with her name, but his. John. That night, Nalarina didn't return to her chamber. She stayed awake in the war hall staring at the fires. Her people had celebrated her for years, called her the queen who broke the human spirit, the one who ended John Rath. But now the truth was clear. He had ended himself, and returned from it. He had never screamed when she fought his squad. He had never begged when captured, maybe because he knew something she didn't. He had planned to die, and now he was walking through her empire like a phantom of war. Just before sunrise, her psychic advisor entered in silence. I felt something, the advisor said softly. A mind that should not exist. It touches the past and the present. It does not sleep. It does not forgive. Nalarina whispered, What does it want? The advisor didn't answer. Instead, she fell to her knees and began to weep, hunting the ghost. The silence of the void echoed louder than any war cry. Across the outer sectors of her empire, Queen Nalarina's ships spread like a silver net. Command scouts, stealth drones, shadow assassins, every tool of war moved through, space with a single target, John Rath. And still, he remained uncatchable. General Vacrel, her most trusted hunter, stood before her in the strategy chamber. His wings were folded tight, his voice low and grim. We have found signs, but no man. Power cells drained without trace, motion detectors disabled by something moving too fast to measure, doors melted open with no known weapon. Your Highness, it is not just that he is alive. It is that he moves like something beyond alive. Nalarina stared at the floating maps before her. Sector by sector, lights turned red. Not from enemy fleets, but from silence. Outposts going dark, entire squads vanishing mid-report. No blood, no battles, only silence. It's not war, She said, "It's fear. He's making them afraid before they even see him." In a hidden chamber on Moon Arlock 9, 3 elite scouts waited for orders. They wore chameleon armor and carried weapons tuned for human biology. They had trained for months to fight humans. One whispered, "Why would a dead man come back?" The other replied, "Maybe because she wore his face like a prize." They never saw what hit them. A flash of shadow. A pulse of pain. Then, nothing. Their last recording was only 5 seconds long. In it, a figure stepped through fire unharmed. His eyes glowed faint blue, and in his hand, he held a cracked black mask, the same one Nalarina once wore. His voice came through the static, unfinished. Back at the palace, Nalarina stood alone before the Hall of Ancestors. She pressed her hand to the stone wall, whispering names of fallen queens. But she was not seeking strength. She was asking for forgiveness, for lying, for building her throne on a false story. She thought of the battle at Entor, but now, memories began to shift, details blurred. Had she really seen him die? Was the mask given to her? Or did she take it from someone else? What if she had killed the wrong human? Her breath trembled. "He let me believe I won," she whispered. "Why?" Whisper echoed back. Not from the wall, but from the air around her. "Because stories build empires, and I needed yours to grow strong." She spun. The voice was his. But again, no one stood there. Only her own reflection in the polished wall. Only her eyes wide with fear. Soon after, her spy net delivered something worse than any attack. A video, ripped from one of their own ships. It showed a war beast, large and armored, dragging itself across the floor, torn open from the inside. Something had crawled out of it. Then, a human voice. "You sent a monster to find me." So I showed it the truth. The final image. John Rath standing atop the beast's corpse, staring into the camera. His chest showed a faint red glow where his heart used to be, but the machines inside him still hummed. Nalarina called a private war meeting. Only 4 attended, those she trusted most. "We are not facing a soldier," she said. "We are facing a weapon that does not forget. A ghost with memory." The youngest of them, Commander Selik, raised a shaking hand. "What do you want?" "Us to do?" Nalarina looked at him and spoke slowly. "I want you to find the truth. Everything we missed, everything we buried. If I never killed him, then who did? If he never died, then what did he become?" And after a long silence, she added one more thing. "And what is he planning now?" The hidden war stars blinked above the capital skies, calm and silent as ever. But beneath that silence, a war no one could see had already begun. Queen Nalarina stood on the balcony of her highest tower, eyes searching the darkness as if hoping to catch a shadow mid-movement. But John Rath was never where he should be. He left no footprints, no scent, no voice. Only the chilling sense of being watched. Yet his presence was no longer rumor. It was proof. Proof in destroyed drones, in erased files, in terrified survivors, who could not describe what they saw, and worst of all, his silence. He didn't shout. He didn't attack in armies. He whispered through systems, broke through shields, and vanished like smoke. Days later, Nalarina's private chambers were breached, not by force, but by message. She woke to find the walls of her room glowing with unfamiliar code, human code, moving like a river of light. At the center, one phrase pulsed in red: "You never heard my last breath." She stood frozen. Her memories twisted again. She remembered his fall, but not the sound of death. She remembered his blood, but not the moment his heart stopped. Had she ever looked into his eyes when it happened? Or had someone handed her? The mask told her the lie, and she believed it, because it gave her power. Meanwhile, something worse spread through the fleet. Her own soldiers began to see him, on isolated patrols, in the shadows of warships, even inside secured towers. Some, described his armor glowing like it had survived fire. Others said he walked without footsteps as if gravity feared him. One officer swore that John had looked right through her helmet and said, "You followed a false queen." That officer vanished the next day. Only her helmet was found, turned, upside down, filled with dust. Nalarina's war scientists brought her an ancient report. It detailed a forbidden human project, not designed for war, but for survival after defeat, Project Revenant. She had read the name before, but this time they showed her the final lines. If the subject's mission is not complete, he will not die. If his purpose is stolen from him, he will adapt. If his memory is erased, it will return. If he is broken, he will rebuild from the pain. The signature on the bottom was from a human scientist long thought dead. Beneath it, a message scribbled in old ink. We didn't build a soldier. We built a reckoning. Nalarina gave new orders. All high command officers were to stay inside the capital. No more movements, no more patrols. But it was too late. Already John Wrath had begun disassembling her empire from the inside. Food supplies vanished from storage units. Communication towers melted without sound. A general woke to find his war medals had been replaced by human dog tags, John's. Another found his room filled with a voice that whispered in the dark, "You cheered when they lied. Now silence is your gift." They both quit within hours. They weren't the only ones. A rebellion began, not with guns but with questions. Why was their queen afraid? Why did she order silence? Why did she avoid saying the human's name now? Rumors spread like a virus. And in every corner, someone whispered the name John Wrath, with awe or fear. Some even called him the man who walked without death. One night, Nalarina stood before a secret chamber that held the broken weapons of ancient enemies. Only she had access. But when the doors opened, she didn't find her collection. Instead, laid out neatly on a metal table, was her first armor, the one she wore the day of the Entor battle. Across the chest was scratched one word, liar, on. The wall above it, someone had painted the shape of a breathing mask, and beside it a note, "I remember everything." "Do you?" Nalarina whispered into her comms. "Lock every door. Seal the skies. No one enters. No one leaves." Her captain's voice came back, trembling. "Your Highness, when the doors are already open." And from behind her the lights flickered once, then twice, then a single breath. She turned slowly. No one was there, but the air was warmer, as if someone had just exhaled. The truth behind the trophy. The Royal Moon Archives had not been opened in over 70 years. Even Nalarina's mother, the queen before her, had only entered it twice. It was a cold place, built not of stone or steel, but of ancient data and memory. The past lived here, and it refused to stay silent. Nalarina walked through its narrow halls alone. No guards, no servants. She didn't trust them anymore, not after what happened in the West Chamber. When her own advisor whispered, "You lied," before cutting out her own tongue, the memories were unraveling, and Nalarina knew now. Truth was hiding, somewhere in the lie she built. She passed row after row of locked vaults, her fingers trembling as she pressed her blood key into one marked Entor Campaign Phase 5. A soft hiss. Then light. Screens flickered on, images loaded, battle logs, helmet footage, recordings from drones long thought lost. She saw herself, on the battlefield, strong, confident, rising through the smoke with fire in her eyes. She saw John Wrath's squad, a fierce team of humans fighting to the last breath. And then, a strange silence in the recording. The moment of the mask. She had always told her soldiers she pulled it from his dying face, that he looked into her eyes and fell. But here, in this feed, he was not on the ground. He was gone. The last frame of the drone showed Nalarina holding the mask, but it had not come from John. It came from another human, burned beyond recognition. A medic, or maybe a scout. And behind her, just barely visible through the haze, John was standing, walking away, injured, but breathing, and she never noticed. Nalorina staggered back from the screen, her breath sharp and fast. "It was never him," she whispered. "I never killed him." The mask, the symbol of her greatest triumph, had been taken from the wrong corpse. She built her legend on a mistake. No, not a mistake. A story that gave her power, and he had let her tell it. Back in her chamber, Nalorina collapsed to her knees. The mask, once displayed on her throne wall, had vanished days ago, stolen by John himself. Now she knew why. It wasn't a trophy. It was a lie. A symbol of what she never truly earned. And John was not just hunting her. He was erasing her. Reports began flooding in. Planetary governors were quitting. Soldiers laying down weapons. Temples that once praised her now burned her images. John Rath's name was rising again, not as a warrior but as a myth. The human who death rejected. The breath behind the silence. The truth walker. Even alien races who once feared humans now whispered his name with reverence. On the outer world of Threnna, a rebel broadcast hijacked the Queen's signal. It showed a single moment. John Rath standing over a fallen war idol, placing her sigil, the royal blade, at its feet. His words were quiet but sharp. "She wore my face like a crown, but I never bled for her. I bled for the truth." Then he walked away, leaving the blade behind. That single video sparked fire across systems. A dozen colonies revolted overnight. Nalorina met with her war council in secret. Only 4 commanders remained. The rest had either vanished, been killed, or switched sides. One of them asked her carefully, "What do we do now?" She looked at them. No lies left in her mouth. "He's not killing us," she said. "He's unmaking us." "Then we strike back," a commander said. She shook her head. "You can't strike a ghost. You can't shoot a story that's stronger than truth." That night, Nalorina stood before her throne, alone. She traced the edges where the mask once hung. Now it was only a shadow on stone. And behind her she heard something that made her heart turn cold. A soft exhale. Warm. Close. She didn't turn. She only whispered, "You came for the truth." A pause, then John's voice, low and steady, "No, I came to take back what you built from my silence." Face to face with the dead, the abandoned moon where it all began was silent now. Entor, once a battlefield soaked in fire and fury, was now nothing more than ash and bones beneath the stars. Broken metal still jutted from the ground like frozen teeth. War banners flapped in the cold wind, forgotten, frayed. Queen Nalorina stepped onto that soil for the first time since the battle. No guards, no army, no fanfare. Just her, and the truth that waited. This was where she thought she had killed John Rath. This was where the lie had been born. As she walked the path of her old victory, flashes of memory returned. Some real, some false. She remembered the smoke, the human screams, the strange silence when the fighting stopped. But now she saw it clearly. She hadn't killed John that day. She had killed his story, and that had been far more dangerous. A voice echoed from the canyon. Ahead, familiar, steady, deep. "You finally came back." Nalorina raised her head. There, standing beside the ruins of an old supply drop, was John Rath. No weapons, no army, just him, burned armor, cracked chestplate, and that same cold fire in his eyes. But what struck her most wasn't his body, it was his breathing. Slow, unnatural, like something learning to mimic life. He was no longer fully human. And yet, more human than she had ever known. "You're real," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. John tilted his head. Real, enough to tear down an empire made of lies. Nalorina stepped forward slowly. "You let me wear the mask. You let me claim the kill." "Because I needed you to," he said. "Why?" John walked closer, not fast, not threatening, but with the weight of someone who had already died, and chosen to come back anyway. Because fear binds better than truth. They feared you because you killed me. That fear made you a queen. Then why destroy me now? She asked. His eyes narrowed. Because you started believing your own story. Wind cut across the battlefield, lifting ash into the air. Nalarina stared at the man she once called dead. You should have ended me the moment I lied, she said. John didn't blink. I didn't come back for revenge, he said. He pulled something from his belt, a small, sharp object. She stepped back, unsure, but then she saw it. Her royal crest broken in half. The same symbol carved into every palace, worn by every soldier, burned into every prisoner's collar. He dropped it, between them. I came to return this, he said. You don't deserve to wear it anymore. She looked down at the broken crest. In it, she saw her entire rule, built on a battlefield she never won, wearing a mask she never earned. For years, she held the galaxy with her story. And now, with 6 words, John Wrath was unraveling it all. Your war ends with this lie, he said. And it ends today. But Nalarina was not ready to bow. She drew her blade. If you want to take it all, you'll have to fight me for it. John stepped forward, and then, to her shock, he dropped his weapon. You already lost, he said. Not in battle, but in belief. He tapped his chest where the red glow pulsed faintly. They turned me into something to win the war, but I'm not a weapon anymore. I'm a memory, and you can't kill memory. Nalarina stood frozen. Her weapon trembled in her grip. For years she thought herself the victor, the queen of strength, the slayer of the last human hope. But now she realized the truth. She wasn't his executioner. She was his echo. He had walked behind her story like a shadow, and now he was stepping out of it. John turned and began walking away. The broken crest at her feet shimmered in the moonlight. Where will you go? She asked. He paused, looking back one last time, to find others like me, others whose stories were stolen, others who never had a voice. He vanished into the smoke, and Nalarina was left standing alone, on a battlefield that had once made her queen, but now only made her silent. The human who couldn't die. Weeks passed. The stars moved on, but the story of John Wrath had already left its mark. Across the galaxy, something invisible was spreading. Not fear, but awakening. The silence that once followed the Queen's name was now filled with quiet rebellion. People no longer whispered about Nalarina's power. Instead, they spoke of the man she never killed, the one who came back, the one who remembered, the one who didn't die. In the dark corners of shattered colonies, old fighters who had once stood against humans began to question their leaders. Young minds, raised on stories of the Queen's strength, now searched for the hidden truth buried beneath her rule. Holograms of John Wrath appeared in strange places, broadcast on forbidden channels, painted across ruined temples, etched into walls with fire. Truth breathes even when we don't. The phrase caught on. It became a call, a warning, a promise. Nalarina no longer sat on her throne. It still stood high and cold at the center of the war palace, but she had abandoned it. The mask was gone. The blade was gone. And more importantly, the eyes of her people had changed. They didn't look at her with awe anymore. They looked with questions, and she had no answers left. The lie had fed her crown. And now, that lie was starving. Her last loyal general came to her quietly. We've lost 3 more systems, he said. Without a battle, they surrendered to a name, not a force. She looked up slowly. John, he nodded. They don't even believe he's human anymore, the general said. Some think he's a myth, a god. Others, a punishment. Nalarina stared into the void outside her window. And what do you believe? The general hesitated. Then quietly, I believe he gave us the truth, and we weren't ready for it. She closed her eyes. You're dismissed. He left without another word. Far from the palace, in a quiet cave beneath the blue hills of Entor, John Rath sat beside a fire. He didn't speak much. He didn't sleep. His breath came slow and steady, unnatural, machine-fed. His skin was marked by scars that would never fully heal. His heart didn't beat like others. The machines inside kept him walking, kept him breathing, kept him remembering. He wasn't a soldier anymore. He wasn't even a man in the way he used to be. He was something else now, a living memory. One night, a young alien girl appeared at the edge of the firelight, afraid but curious. "Are you the ghost?" she asked. John looked up. His voice was soft. "No, ghosts don't bleed." "Then what are you?" He thought for a long time before answering. "I'm the part of war that doesn't die when the guns stop, the part that comes back when the truth is buried." She sat beside him. "They say you were dead. They were wrong. They say." She wore your face, he smiled without joy. She wore a lie. And now she's learning how heavy that truth can be. Across the galaxy, more people came to find him, not to fight, not to worship, but to listen. To stories that had been stolen, rewritten, erased. He gave them back. He spoke of the battles no one wanted to remember. The peace that was promised but never delivered. The lives lost, not for victory but for vanity. He did not scream. He did not command. He simply reminded them. And that was enough. In time, Nalorina stood before her people in the Grand Plaza. No armor, no crown, only truth. "I ruled because of a lie," she said. "And the one I claimed to defeat never stopped walking. Some booed. Others stood in silence. But she didn't speak to win them. She spoke because the story no longer belonged to her. He is not your enemy," she said. "He is your memory." And with that she stepped down. Not in shame, but in acceptance. In the years that followed, the galaxy changed. Not through war, but through words. Truth became sharper than weapons. Memories became stronger than walls. And John Rath, once thought dead, became a symbol not of revenge but of reckoning. A man who rose not to destroy an empire, but to end a lie that should never have lived. And somewhere, in the stillness between stars, a breath continued. Slow, steady, endless. Not because he lived, but because he refused to be forgotten.